Raid Panel, shoutcasted by Ian Hazikostas and Josh Allen.
Good morning, Blizzcon.
Yo!
Thanks for coming out this morning to watch some awesome raiding action. We've got 2 of the best guilds in the world, 50 of the best players in the world, here to show off their skills as we go through Siege of Orgrimmar raid.
Yeah, absolutely. We have over here on your left, we have Method, and then over here on your right, Midwinter.
And serving as observers to give us a perspective on all the action, we have 2 of our encounter designers joining us up here, Scott Gordon and Candace Thomas. So this is going to be a race through 5 bosses in Siege of Orgrimmar, and without further ado, do you want to just get right into the action?
Let's do it.
All right, countdown from 10.
All right. Ready?
Yep, getting ready to go. In 10, join us with this. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go! All right, we are jumping right in to pulling Shah of Fear, the first boss here.
Yeah, technically usually the 4th boss in the instance, but we're mixing things up a little bit today. What exactly bosses are we going to be moving through today?
It's going to be Shah of Fear, then the Dark Shaman, Malkarok, Siegecrafter Blackfuse, and Garrosh, of course on heroic mode.
Yeah, so we're going through an absolute all-out race through this instance today, and we can see already the guilds are very, very even in terms of boss percentage, both hitting the 76%, 77%, right about the same time here.
Yeah, you can see really as they all pop all their cooldowns, all their timers on the pull, the boss health just melts.
Yeah, totally. So, trying to check our exact raid compositions here. I believe they're actually pretty similar overall. They're both running, you can see on the screen here, on that left side, we will have the 2 tanks, followed by the healers, and then the DPS afterwards. So it looks like Midwinter running 5 healers. I believe Method is running 6.
That is correct. Now, the heroic mechanic on Shaw of Pride, many of you may be familiar with the fights on other difficulties. On heroic mode, one of the major additions is if you look at the floor, if you look at the ground around the room, there are these little rifts, these black and white Shaw pools that form. And each one of those just lobs missiles at random members of the raid that deal splash damage and give you corruption if you don't avoid them. And you have to go stand them, you have to go close them by standing on them, which inflicts damage on you, and there's a cooldown on how many you can close, how quickly. Now, of course, going to close them is going to reduce your DPS. A normal guild playing it safe is going to try to, keep as many closed as possible. But here, I think in a speedrun, they're going to try to push it as hard as they can. And of course, there's some risk involved in that.
And of course, that is in addition to all of the normal mode mechanics. So they've got to deal with all of that as well. Still very, very neck and neck thus far in this raid instance.
You can really see that the DPS of these 2 guilds is really perfectly evenly matched. They're just within 1%, even a couple of minutes in at this point. Now you'll see both guilds have placed raid markers at the 4 corners of the platform. That's because every minute, 4 random members of the raid are going to be imprisoned there, and 3 people each have to go and break them out and free them. You see that happen right there on Midwinter's screen. When the panels light up orange, you go stand on them, they turn blue, and that's how you free your raid members. The longer they spend in there, the less damage they're going to do, the further they'll fall behind.
Yeah, exactly. So getting those guys out of those little prisons that they get stuck in is definitely very, very important here. I'm still impressed at how closely matched this is. These are definitely 2 of the best guilds in the world. Of course, Method being the #1 25-man Horde guild, and Midwinter being the #1 25-man Alliance guild. Very, very awesome to see these 2 guilds face off today.
Yep. So they're coming up. On the 30% mark when there's a phase transition. Norushen, who's been helping out the raid at this point, you see him standing off on the right side of your screen. He will sacrifice himself to cleanse the raid's pride, and at that point, it's just a race to the finish. As the Shaw of Pride pulses, increasing damage, and gives pride to the members of the raid, which will trigger more and more abilities. But of course, these guilds are both going to be able to burn the boss down pretty quickly at that point. We see them both hitting that 30% mark right now. Again, just 1% difference between the two.
Yeah, they should be popping all of their DPS cooldowns remaining at this point. Of course, it hasn't been long since the initial pull, so they may not have many of them readily available, but still, that boss is absolutely melting in the wake of these two kills. And it looks like Method may actually be starting to pull slightly ahead in boss DPS. It's so close right now.
This is pretty much as close to neck and neck as you're going to get. They're both hitting 20% now.
Yeah, I literally cannot look between these two screens fast enough to figure out which number is changing first. This is ridiculously fast.
And you can see raid health on both is pretty stable. Every so often the Shah fires out a volley of bolts and the health spikes down, but everyone gets topped off pretty quickly.
Yeah, damage as this phase continues is going to start ramping up quickly. Oh, we do have 1 dead, 2 dead, 3 dead now.
Quick battle res on Method side, so only 2 dead, now back to just 1 dead.
Yep,
out those battle reses. But that has meant Midwinter's actually pulled like 2% ahead. So in this first, every second counts. You never know how close it's going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Midwinter's 3% ahead now. It looks like they're going to get this kill first.
2%. 1%. And there it is. Of course, Method not far behind either at 2%, 1%, and there it is.
Right. So, first blood for Midwinter. The underdogs, many consider them, but here they are pulling out a few seconds ahead. Now, the way we're doing this, as soon as Shah of Pride is defeated, the group is ported immediately to Orgrimmar, where they're going to face off against the Kor'kron Dark Shaman. Now, this boss is actually one that offers some opportunity to really save some time if you want to be risky. Many guilds, in fact, I would say most guilds, use a third tank on this fight and split up the two bosses, pulling them apart to make their abilities much less dangerous. However, if you keep them stacked together for the entire fight, well, you can actually squeeze out much more DPS and get a quicker kill, but with much higher risk. It remains to be seen whether one or both of these guilds is going to take the riskier approach in the speedrun today.
Yeah, and in fact, on that note, very interesting choice by Method there. Actually taking a few extra seconds to get themselves prepared before they pull the boss does give Midwinter a little bit more of a head start in boss DPS. They already have them at 85%, but if they take that extra time and just make sure that they have no issues whatsoever. I mean, hectic is kind of a light word to explain how ridiculous this fight can be.
Pretty much. It's a relatively simple fight, but when all the abilities interact, it's incredibly chaotic. So the extra little wrinkle here on Heroic is that normally each of the Shaman, they have 3 elemental totems that they drop in certain health percentages, which grant them and empower certain abilities. On Heroic mode, there's an additional totem that creates iron-related abilities. It both creates these collision blockers that will basically crush you if you don't get out of the way, and puts a really powerful potent dot that ticks for the entirety of someone's health bar on random members of the raid, and that's starting right away. So here we see, interesting, okay, so Midwinter is definitely keeping them together. They're trying to cleave them down, but you can already see how busy the screen is on Midwinter's side, with those tornadoes going all over the place, and any number of things that will kill you. Method, on the other hand,
they're actually taking them inside of the room there.
Yeah, so Method is actually separating them to an extent, keeping one inside Grommash Hole, the other one outside, to get that ability separation between the two, but that's going to come at the expense of some damage. So really, if Midwinter can pull off the strat they're using, they're going to pull actually a fair bit ahead here. But it's risky. If they wipe, then it's all for naught.
It is absolutely a huge risk. And one interesting thing about this in particular, I mean, we talk about, these are obviously 2 of the best guilds in the world right now. But progression rating and a race like this, it's still a very different thing. It's a question of how much can you capitalize on these little risk versus reward moves like this. If Midwinter, if this works out for them, and they do have 2 dead players right now, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure if they've actually used any 3 dead players now. Not sure if they've used any battle reses yet. Looks like one Shaman just used reincarnation. I think I saw a death on Method's side as well there for a second. Yep. Oh, Midwinter in trouble. 4 dead.
Now this is a fight. It's not uncommon to lose several people on the Dark Shaman fight, as long as you keep your healers, as long as you keep your tanks intact. Ooh, though you can't lose too many.
Yeah. Remember, Midwinter is running with, is that actually down to 4 healers for this? Is that 2 healers? Do they only have Where are their healers? I cannot find... Oh, there they are in the middle. Okay, they've moved around on the screen a little bit. Apologies for that. But they are down several DPS now at this point, which is going to make it difficult. They're at 40% on the boss, and Method is actually catching up now at 50%.
So that's ultimately that risk-reward trade-off, right? What they gain by keeping the bosses together and being able to cleave them simultaneously, they lose by having 4 people dead. Turns out that's not so good.
Turns out when, you lose several you just don't do much DPS as a corpse on the floor, generally speaking. It's really hard to keep that going when you're, dead.
Yep. Method does still have 1 death, but that doesn't seem to be hindering them as they're steadily closing the gap here. It seems like their more methodical approach to the encounter, planning before they pull, and separating them may be paying off.
Yeah, in fact, Method even had a battle res available for that 1 dead DPS, so they are totally fine right now. Midwinter looking a little dicey, but they are down to 29%. Don't have too much longer that they need to hold this together, and they are still in the lead, so they may still be able to pull out the advantage here.
That said, the hardest part of the fight is that last 25%. These are shamans, and well, shamans cast Bloodlust. So when the boss gets to 25%, they trigger Bloodlust, which increases their damage output, their attack speed, it basically increases the pace of everything going on in the fight, and hopefully they can outlast that.
There's 1 more death for Midwinter.
Yep.
Now at 20%, they're getting into that execute range. DPS should come up a little bit, but not if they keep losing members. That's now 7 dead.
7 down on Midwinter's side, looks like.
Yeah, just one on Method for Method, but Method has now hit that Bloodlust phase as well. Oh dear. Now that's a lot of dead, but they may still be able to pull this off. That's a lot of dead though.
It really is. I mean, as long as their tanks are up and as long as they have a few healers to keep those tanks up, you can keep this fight going for a long time. It's going to be messy. It's not the thing you want to have happen in a speed race. Now, of course, if you look over at Method's screen, inside Grommash Hold, there's basically no room to maneuver.
Oh, there is no space in there at all.
It is just full of elementals from those ashen walls, and the iron tombs just stacked everywhere. So they're really pinned into a corner, but fortunately for them, the fight is almost over. The finish line is in sight.
Midwinter definitely looking in some trouble here. They do have them at 8%. They may still be able to finish it off in time, but 7% for Midwinter, 9% for Method. A tank is down for Midwinter.
So now the question is, can Midwinter burn this boss down, or are they going to wipe to Dark Shaman, which will set them fairly significantly behind?
Yeah, that would put them ridiculously behind, as Method has now pulled into the lead on boss DPS. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's self-evident. There's
Method kills the boss.
With the kill. And Midwinter with the heartbreaking 3% wipe.
Oh,
so close.
That hurts.
So close.
Now.
So in the meantime, now, Method is moving on to Malkorok. Midwinter, they're going to have to res, rebuff, and try again. That said, this race is far from over. The hardest bosses lie ahead, and a single mistake on any of those can spell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dark Shaman, like I said, very, very hectic encounter. But after this, we've got Malkorok and Black Fuse.
Exactly. And then, of course, Garrosh.
Oh, obviously Garrosh.
So these two guilds actually recently faced off in a charity event, racing through Throne of Thunder. And Method got off to an early lead after some difficulties on Jinrock, but then Method in that race actually wiped on Dark Animus, allowing Midwinter to catch back up. So it's really not settled until Garrosh actually dies. But of course, Method's jumping right in, engaging Heroic Malkorok now.
So Malkorok, what are the different mechanics on Heroic mode for this boss? Obviously, we can see the pools are still there. The slash is still there that you have to not stand in. When you do need to stand in the pools, that's the normal mode mechanics. What's different for Heroic mode?
There are 2 major differences on Heroic mode. So first off, if you look around, you'll begin to see these little black and white Shaw globes forming. They look like a corrupt version of Monk Healing Spheres. Any player in Malkorok who touches them will immediately have their shield fully negated and take some damage. So you really need to carefully avoid these while soaking the pools and otherwise navigating the hazards of the encounter, but then at some point you do need to clean them up, otherwise the playing area is going to be completely full of them and you're going to be overwhelmed. Also, every time Malkorok knocks people up into the air, it spawns these Shah oozes, which significantly slow and hinder the casting speed of people near them. Those need to be picked up, pulled into melee, and cleaved down there. Now, Malkorok, ultimately, a DPS race, a fairly straightforward encounter for these guilds, but it's also an unforgiving one. If they don't soak a single one of those pools and it blows up and hits the raid, that could wipe them right there. So it's still very demanding on the execution side.
Yeah, especially if it happens to go at the same time that they happen to be soaking up some of those Shog globes. So that's definitely very, very tight encounter mechanically for on the Malkorok encounter. Meanwhile, for Midwinter, they have pulled yet again. They are doing much better this time around. All raid members are alive. They're about to cross the 60% threshold on the Dark Shaman, so looking much, much better, much cleaner this time on Midwinter's side. Malkorok, though, for Method at 56% and falling.
So yeah, Method continuing to soak those pools, and soon they're going to come up on the intermediate phase that Malkorok has, where they need to stack and deal with some heavy cleave damage. We'll see what they have planned for that.
Yeah, this is going to be a tense few moments. You can see all of the Shog globes now on Method's side over there in Malkorok. That's a lot of them around there. That means there's very little space to actually stand, and if you have to run through one of those to soak one of those pools that we're seeing now, can be very, very dangerous for you, and can easily lead into deaths. They seem to be doing pretty well thus far. All raid members are still alive for Method, but this is going to start getting dicey for them real soon.
Okay, now they're coming up into Malkorok's Blood Rage phase, where he stops actually putting out this damage, he stops doing his cones, and he does very, very heavy frontal cone damage. And so yeah, you see pretty much the raids stacked up here, helping to split that damage. And in the meantime, people are going out and cleaning up the orbs so they actually have playing space free and available for the rest of the encounter afterwards. It looks like they've got this pretty well under control.
Checking back in with Midwinter over here, they do have the Dark Shaman at 38%. They do have one death at this point, and they did use a few of their battle reses already. I believe they are now out of battle reses, but 36% with only one death does put them in much better shape than they were in their last pull. Taking some big hits there, one more death for Midwinter, but I'm feeling a lot more confident about this particular pull. They just lost another guy, though. Oof.
All right, so yeah, Method's still, plugging right along on Malkorok. Got him below 25%, just getting into execute range now. And it's just a question of finishing him off, avoiding those, sloppy mistakes that are always a possibility, but still looking good for them.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot fewer Shog globes out there now, so they definitely went through and soaked a whole bunch of those up very, very recently. They do have a couple people relatively low on health and one death now at this point, but still not terrible shape. Malkorok at 15% and should be dead very soon here.
So every time Malkorok goes through a Blood Rage phase, it increases all of his damage done, so all of his attacks become more lethal. Things that you used to be able to survive will now kill you, but Method's still holding it together. A lot of people low on health, they have those hefty absorb shields that will protect them from Malkorok's attacks, and yep, so far so good.
Malkorok now at 8%, 7% and falling, checking in with Midwinter real briefly. They are taking a lot of damage. They do have several dead. They are now under 20% on that side over there. It's looking very scary. Malkorok, though, at 3%, 2%, should be falling very soon, 1%, and Method cames Malkorok.
That is now 3 down for Method, but now we're moving on to the really hard ones. So now it's time for Heroic Siegecrafter Blackfuse.
Oh, wow. Oh, big hit there for Midwinter. Looks like this fight is giving them a lot of trouble.
Yeah, no, this is the reason on Midwinter's side, this is the reason why most guilds do separate out the two bosses. It's much, much safer, it's much more reliable, though if you can pull it off, it does save time. Obviously, that risk hasn't paid off in this case.
And now it puts them in a difficult position. Like, you've tried the faster, riskier approach twice. Do you go for it again at this point? I almost feel like you have to.
Yeah.
It's because if you want to catch up, you have to go for the potentially faster kill. But
at this point, really, it's going to come down to Method can actually afford it. Assuming they know that they're this far ahead, which they probably do, they can afford to play it safe at this point and really just make sure, as long as they don't wipe, they should be able to pull this out and win. But now we see them getting ready to engage Siegecrafter Blackfuse. Now, this fight has a couple of changes on Heroic. It's actually one seemingly very small one. The turrets normally roll out on the assembly line. You pick which one to kill, the other two get activated. But Siegecrafter Blackfuse on Heroic throws a wrench into that by overcharging a single one of the turrets on each wave that you choose to leave alive, which drastically transforms its capabilities and what it's going to do to your raid. And you're going to start to see some fire on the ground. Some of you who remember Mimiron's Firefighter back in Old War, some of this may have a pretty similar vibe to that. You see Method's sending players up onto the conveyor belt to DPS down one of those turrets as they tank and otherwise try to engage Blackfuse.
Yeah, definitely a very scary encounter on heroic mode. Midwinter has just pulled again on the Dark Shaman over there. So it looks like once again, yeah, they are going for that risky maneuver, keeping them both outside of that central area there. So hopefully they could, like they were so close last time, if they can just pull it together here, maybe they can catch up. If they catch a lucky break, Method could very much wipe at any point here. Obviously, we still have Garrosh ahead of Blackfuse as well.
Yes, exactly. Now, it's interesting, watching how Method approaches this fight. There are a lot of different approaches to Blackfuse in terms of where you position him, which turrets you kill, which you don't kill. I think the standard strategy actually used by most guilds these days is to tank Blackfuse on the opposite side of the room, near the outgoing conveyor belt, where mines are spawning and other things are activating. Method's tanking them on the intake side of things, and this is very similar to, this is ultimately the strategy that they used when they got their first kill on this as part of the initial progression. And ultimately, I guess they're just sticking with what works for them, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're on stage at Blizzcon, competing in the live raid. Do you go for something like super crazy that you haven't really done much before? Or do you just go with, okay, we know we can kill the boss with this strategy. They know that they have the advantage right now, so...
Exactly. Most guilds, again, if you watch a guild doing Siegecraft or Blackfuse these days, typically you're not going to see any of those drills with the concentric circles. Guilds generally try to kill those whenever possible because they're very technically demanding in terms of avoiding them what they do to your positioning. Most guilds choose to instead engage with mines most of the time, but not Method in this case. And one of the things that getting rid of the mines saves is that maybe it lets you focus more of your DPS on the boss, which in a speedrun context will also help save time in terms of the overall boss kill time.
Yeah, for sure. Checking in with Midwinter real quick. They do have one dead. He will be battle rezzed. 56% on the Dark Shaman. But again, it's that 25% phase that's been giving them so much trouble. So hopefully they can stay together until the end and manage to pull out this kill.
So you see, as the Siegecraft or Blackfuse fight progresses on Method's side, they need to continually reposition the boss, move him around the room to deal with the evolving hazards. And we see more drills going out, fire all over the ground. So the overcharged lasers, normally the laser just follows a single player and draws a line of fire in their wake. When it's overcharged, it draws these massive concentric circles of fire that cover the entire room.
Yeah.
Look at that far perspective on the screen on Method's POV right now. There's just fire everywhere. But of course they know exactly where to stand to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. Midwinter's doing all right over here still, but they do have 3 dead, and I believe that they're out of battle reses, so it's really going to be tight for them again. This fight, like seriously, yes, they're struggling on this. This is a really, really difficult encounter, especially when you're, competing on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, and you're in a hurry, right? You just need to go, 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 go.
It's telling of how difficult the encounter is when you try to tank them together that Method chose not to do it. Because they're an excellent guild, they're not generally one to play it safe, but it's significantly helpful to separate them, just in terms of the risk, the possibility of abilities interacting in ways that are going to kill people, and that's what Midwinter has been plagued with.
Absolutely. Blackfuse is now at 42%. You can see all those fires have cleared out at this point, so there is much safer area to stand in. They are having to avoid that drill at the moment, but these guys are pretty good. They know how to not stand in things, so that's not a problem at all. Blackfuse now at 40%. Crawler mines being killed, and they're looking really good.
Yeah, they still have a ways to go on Blackfuse, though. So much of that damage they do to Blackfuse is done during the initial burn on the pole, before turrets have been activated, before the other adds have spawned. And once you have to start turning your attention to dealing with all those abilities, as you see Method right now, dealing with overcharged mines, which are giant mines that contain smaller mines inside. So as you kill them, they break out into smaller mines. It's a lot of things to kill and deal with, which distracts your attention away from the boss and reduces your ability to deal damage from the boss.
Midwinter looking a little dicey again over here. 22%. They've got, what is that, 7, 8 dead. 20% though, they're getting into the execute range. They may be able to pull it off this time. Come on, let's give them some support. Let's make sure they can get this kill.
It really just comes down to their ability. They can keep their tanks up, keep their healers up so they can keep the tanks up.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, so the killer ability there on Dark Shaman is those massive falling meteors. You see them slowly fall, but when they hit the ground, it just does a huge raid-wide AoE. It's like 400 or 500k to the entire raid, and if anyone's even hurt a little bit, that just kills you.
Yeah, definitely very, very soul-crushing here for Midwinter as they wipe for the 3rd time on Dark Shaman.
Alright, so here we see Method pinned into a corner, dealing with the saw blades being pulled by the magnet and rockets that are down, but they're handling it, killing those rockets as they spawn, and using what little breathing room they have to actually safely navigate the threats of the encounter.
Very much to Midwinter's credit over here, they are not giving up at all. They say, you know what, we're here to kill bosses. That's what they're going to do. They're regrouping, discussing their strategy a little bit. They want to kill this boss. So you have more overcharged fire lines coming through on Method's side. They probably have like 5 square yards of real estate right now to work with, and they're using it for all it's worth. Yeah, a little bit of homework for you. Find a safe place to stand in all of that.
Hint, it's right where they're all standing. Yes, you see all of them fixated by mines. They have those little fixate eyes over their heads, but they're killing the mines before they reach them. And really just actually executing this perfectly right now.
Yeah, this is looking absolutely beautiful from Method over here. They are going to have to avoid that drill in the middle of all that fire, which can be a little bit tricky, but these guys know what they're doing. Actually looked like they stepped into the fire there for just a second just to get out of the way, but they were able to heal through it. We now have Black Fuse at 7%. Only a little bit longer to go. Ooh, Tank getting very, very low there on health, but is healed back up.
So at this point, I think you're going to see them just clean up these last overcharged drills, and then focus the boss, burn him down, and that will be the fight.
Yeah, they are out of that heavy fire phase now, so there's plenty of room. All they have to do is just finish him off, basically. Hit him till he stops moving. 2% on Black Fuse. 1% on Black Fuse. Couple deaths, but it doesn't matter. Method claims Black Fuse.
And that is 4 down for Method now. But onward to Garrosh Hellscream himself.
Yeah, Garrosh, a very scary and very long encounter on
this is by far the longest encounter that they're going to be facing today, because on Heroic Mode, Garrosh actually has an additional 4th phase that takes place in Garrosh's vision of a ruined Stormwind Harbor, his vision of his own triumph. So this will be something we'll get to see towards the end of the fight, but it really takes what is already a fairly lengthy fight and adds an additional phase on top of it. So we're probably looking at around 12 minutes, 13 minutes for that.
Yeah, and we see once again Method is being very careful here. They know that they've got an advantage right now. They just want to make sure they're communicating everything clearly. Looks like they may actually be swapping out a character or something. There is a summoning portal up, so they may just be swapping in for a slightly better composition, which they have the time for right now. They're going to take every second that they can to make sure that they're going into this as strong as possible.
Exactly. Really, the order of the day for Method right now is just do not wipe, play it safe, do what they're used to doing, and as long as they can pull that off, they should have victory in hand.
Meanwhile, Midwinter is looking much cleaner over here now. 47% on Dark Shaman. No deaths as of yet. So looking much better. As I say that, sorry guys. But still in good shape, I think. It really has been, though, that 25% Bloodlust phase that's been giving them so much trouble. They did have a battle res available for that one dead player, so he will be back into the fight. 41% now on Dark Shaman. One more death. Hopefully they have a battle res for that. They just need to hold it together just a little bit longer here.
All right, so Method here engaging Garrosh, going right into phase 1. You see them having a range group run out to stand on the steps to his throne so that he throws the first desecrated weapon out there in a place that the rest of the raid's not going to necessarily have to deal with it immediately. And in phase 1, there are many, many changes to this encounter on Heroic Mode. One of the biggest right away is that Garrosh's ads that normally are just tanked instead fixate on random raid members, which means that when he empowers them with Hellscream's Warsong, if they're still alive, they're going to do tremendous damage, and probably fatal damage to those players. In the meantime, the Iron Stars that make their way across the room, whichever one isn't killed, again, the damage that does on Heroic is just tremendous, so you really need to stack, use coordinated raid cooldowns to survive that. We see again, Method having their range methodically run out to get that desecrated weapon thrown on the throne, and then everyone else stacks on Garrosh for the remainder.
Midwinter hitting that 25% bloodlust phase here. They have 2 dead, which is much better shape than they've been in before going into this phase. We'll see if they're able to bring it home this time. Looking much better. Another death there, but still looking good. 22%.
We will cleanse this Farsian.
Oh, so much raid damage, but they're recovering. They're doing all right.
It's every single time those falling meteors just are going to do terrible things to the raid frames. But as long as they can top them off quickly enough.
Yep. It's really just a state of almost dying every time one of those hits, and just making sure it's not completely dying every single time.
We see at least a couple of deaths now on Method's side in Phase 1 Garrosh. As he was about to transition, Garrosh threw down a Desecrated weapon pretty much point-blank range. And right around the same time an Iron Star went out. Turns out that's going to kill some people. That's not getting off to a good start here, because with several deaths, maybe not the ability. Yeah, it looks like they're intentionally wiping this at this point.
Yes, we have our first wipe from Method.
Because the reality is that Garrosh consists of a series of really intense DPS and coordination checks. And if you lose people early on, and you know you're going to be behind for the entire encounter, in a speed race, better to wipe it early so that you have a chance of recovering later on.
Here comes that meteor again for Midwinter. Can they live through it? Oh, ouch. 7%. That is brutal. That is, I've had my share of sub 10% wipes in the past, and it never gets any easier. It is always just that worst feeling in the pit of your stomach.
I mean, at this point, honestly, analyzing the approach of the 2 guilds, knowing that these are both excellent guilds, I think you really just have to say the fatal flaw Midwinter's made so far has just been their strategy on Dark Shaman. I think if they'd chosen the safer approach, we'd probably see them on Blackfuse or even Garrosh right now. Maybe they'd be capitalizing on the mistake Method just made.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we brought it up earlier. They made the choice to go for the riskier maneuver. Method went for something a little bit safer. Midwinter had the possibility with that risky maneuver to pull an early, strong lead, but it's just not working out for him.
Yeah. Though it's still not over. Again, comes down to Garrosh ultimately, and we'll see if Method can pull it together and have a cleaner Phase 1 this time that will carry them into a better attempt.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still plenty of time for Midwinter to catch up if they can just rush through these next few bosses here. If they can kill the Dark Shaman, obviously. They still got to get through those guys, but after that, well, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, at least 2 of those other bosses combined probably take as much or even less time than Garrosh alone does. So, Method still needs to execute, Method still needs to close this out.
Farseers, mend our wounds.
We see Method finishing off 1 Siege Engineer. One cool thing that Method does, they probably pioneered as a tactic when they were first learning this fight that you actually won't see that many other guilds do. Most guilds tend to have ranged players kill the Siege Engineer on one side. Midwinter actually has this crack team of rogues that will shadow step up there, DPS them down, cloak of shadows through the explosion, and they have their little, assigned rogue kill squad. Which is kind of a pretty cool thing for rogues to do. It's interesting that they actually settled on that strat, but it certainly works for them.
Yeah, it's a very strange choice to me, because obviously the rogue is having to run all the way across. It's not super far with shadow step, but
I think that actually what they tend to do is actually get the rogues just kind of camp up there, camp on that side. They can cloak of shadows to survive the explosion, otherwise keep themselves up, which minimizes the movement required from everyone else.
Right, makes total sense. Very, very interesting strategy indeed.
So things looking cleaner for Method right now. So Garrosh, when he reaches 10% health, remember, Garrosh himself, at this point he's just an orc. He's a very powerful orc, he's a great warrior, but you can actually work through his health pool pretty quickly. It's only when he's really backed into a corner, when he gets very low in health, that he just siphons the power of the Heart of Visage hanging overhead and actually transforms into his true form, takes his true power. And we see that beginning to happen right now. Garrosh running to the center of the room.
I wonder what possesses somebody to decide, you know what, I'm just going to chuck an axe into a heart and just stand in whatever comes out. Very strange line of, very disturbed individual, Garrosh.
If you were down to 10% health, you might do that too.
Absolutely.
So now, shortly, Method's going to be moving into the Heart Room phase of the Garrosh encounter, as the power of the Heart of Visage really draws everyone into this other realm. And these are familiar locations from throughout Pandaria where players confronted different aspects of the Shah. This is the Temple of the Jade Serpent, or at least a vision of the Temple of the Jade Serpent, produced by the Heart. Now, in here, there are 5 groups of ads that all need to be very carefully controlled because they're constantly trying to cast these Shah bolt volleys that will do terrible damage to the raid if they're able to get off. So you really need organized stuns, interrupts, but they've clearly practiced this many, many, many times. As they learn the fight, they go through and execute just like clockwork.
Absolutely. You can see that big cleave, those big hits that Garrosh is putting out. They've got to avoid standing in. Those hurt quite a bit.
Pretty much. If you stand in one of those cones, certainly on heroic, you're instantly dead.
Yeah. And it still does a whole lot of damage to everyone else in the raid.
Exactly. You can see every time his axe comes down, this wave of energy is emitted, and that's doing pretty significant damage to the whole raid, but they're using personal cooldowns, raid cooldowns, whatever they have available to live through it.
Yeah. Did dip very low there right at the end, but it was right at the end of that particular phase, so now they are back on Garrosh himself, outside of the heart phase, and they're pulling him over to the side here. Now this is mostly going to be to try to avoid those desecrated weapons that he's throwing out. They do still need to kill them, but pulling him over to the side here does give them a little bit of extra space. There is now a mind control that'll go out that they'll need to clear out. Meanwhile, checking out Midwinter over here, 36%, 35%, still looking in good shape. They have their entire raid alive. They need to be able to pull off this kill here.
So, back to on the Garrosh side of things, one of the primary objectives as you go into those heart rooms is the sooner you can get to him, the sooner you can bring that barrier down, the sooner he stops channeling on the heart and gaining corruption. Every 25 corruption he gets empowers an additional ability. And so one of the biggest DPS and execution cutoffs on the fight is making sure that you can reach Garrosh in that first heart room before he gets to 25 power. Because once he gets to 25, his whirling corruption ability becomes empowered and begins spawning adds. And those are very difficult to deal with on heroic, and you want to see as few of them as possible. Method managed to meet that first cutoff, getting only 23 power in the first heart room.
Midwinter now getting deep into that Bloodlust phase, 20% on the Dark Shaman. They have their whole raid alive. They need to keep it that way. They need to keep everybody alive. Here comes that big poison hit coming out. Do have one death, but still in good shape. 15%. The DPS is going much, much faster with this bunch of their raid alive. They may actually be able to pull this off here. Let's give them some support, guys. Come on. Let's get these guys a kill. 11%. Still looking good. 10%. One more death. 2 is fine. They can do it with 2 dead.
Yeah, they're probably going to have a couple deaths as the fight winds down, but the reality is just having made it to this point in the encounter with this much of the raid alive,
yes,
they're much better positioned to actually close out the kill this time.
Big hit, but they do recover, only losing 1 in that. 5% now. This is a tense moment, guys. 4%. 3%. Come on, 2%. 1%. And I think they're gonna get it. There it is! All right.
And now we see, so as Midwinter moves on to the third boss, and they're facing off against Malkrok now, we see Method in the second of Garrosh's heart rooms. This one is the Terrace of Endless Spring, or at least a vision of the Terrace of Endless Spring, which was the raid zone. Unlike the other one that had 5 groups of medium-sized adds, this is full of a huge cluster of tiny adds, all of which need to be killed, and which do fairly significant damage if they're not tanked, as damage goes out. So here we see Method carefully avoiding the various bolts, AoEing down the adds, and breaking Garrosh's barrier.
Yep. So they should be in good shape here again. This is going to start doing a whole lot of damage, this big cleave ability that he does. But they've survived it fine in the past. I don't see them having too much of an issue. It's really just a don't stand in the thing particular phase. They do have to heal everybody up afterwards, but these guys have done this a lot of times. They should be totally fine on that.
Okay, so coming out of this phase, though, now this is where the real challenge of Garrosh begins. Garrosh's single most dangerous ability is likely Empowered Whirling Corruption. Normally, it's just raid-wide damage, but once it's empowered, it spawns a number of adds that have to be tanked and killed separately, because when one of them dies, it massively heals, buffs, and empowers other nearby adds. And just dealing with that coordination significantly reduces your damage uptime on Garrosh, and if you don't handle it perfectly, they're going to start killing people. So we're going to see that first Empowered Whirling Corruption coming up soon.
Yeah, that is definitely a very scary ability to have to deal with. Even on normal mode, on heroic, it's even scarier just because of the amount of damage going out. Garrosh now at 25%. Midwinter has Malkrok at 72%. They're looking very, very clean over here so far. Much less like strenuous and hectic encounter than Dark Shaman. I don't see them having the same issues that they had on Dark Shaman with Malkrok. They should be able to do much, much better over here.
Exactly. Now on Method's side, Garrosh has just performed his first Empowered Whirling Corruption. So you may see these little Shah adds around. they are the products of that ability. And yeah, it looks like they cleaned them up mostly in the back, and they're stacking back up on Garrosh for his next mind control, getting ready for that, so that they can break the mind control immediately. One of the things that you really learn from practicing Garrosh a lot is exactly how and when to position, when to stack, when to spread. So you're ready for the next ability, you can handle it properly, and then immediately move into your new configuration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Method looking very, very clean over there, but again, they do still have a couple phases left to go through, so could be pretty scary for them. They're going to head back into the heart here. Oh, excuse me. No, is he actually transitioning into?
No. So yes, exactly. So when Garrosh reaches 10% for a second time, now he goes into his third phase, where he's fully transformed, fully empowered. All of his abilities are empowered, and at this point, this is just a race. You can't really deal with his abilities. You can't handle them for very long. So the challenge becomes to get him down, to basically kill him. Normally, now this is where the fight on normal mode would end, but on heroic, he has some extra surprises in store for you. But you need to get him down to 1% health before you get overwhelmed by his abilities.
Yeah. Midwinter does have Malkarok at 42%. They did have a death there for a second, but had a battle res more than readily available.
Now, one interesting thing that Midwinter's doing on Malkarok, actually, whereas Method stacked up for Malkarok's Blood Rage, Midwinter is actually using a single monk tank to handle all that damage, which lets the rest of their raid have higher DPS uptime, clean up the orbs, and in many ways it's safer. Plus, you also get tons and tons of tank damage out of that tank with all of his vengeance. Again, these are the sorts of things that would have shaved seconds, could have bought them time, if not for the Dark Shaman errors.
Exactly.
Now, on Method side of things, we see at least a couple of deaths, including a dead tank. Yep, just got popped back up immediately.
Yep. It is starting to look really dicey for them over here, though. They've got him at 12%. That's a lot of dead.
That is a wipe. That is a wipe, ladies and gentlemen. And that is a wipe a good 10 minutes into the fight.
Yeah.
So if Midwinter closes out Malkarok, cleans up Blackfuse, they'll both be on Garrosh. That's a lot of lost time.
That is. Every single one of those phases on Garrosh can last as long as any of the encounters, especially the ones that Midwinter has left to kill. With Malkarok at 18% now, they should be able to finish that off here relatively soon. That can just be a scary position for it. Like, this can actually be a scary position for Method.
Unlike the last time we did one of these live raids in 2011 at that Blizzcon, the zone was Firelands. Firelands actually had 6 relatively easy bosses for guilds of this caliber and only 1 challenge in Heroic Ragnaros. But many of these bosses, certainly both Blackfuse and Garrosh, rise to that overall caliber, and this is a much sterner challenge. Plus, these guilds have actually only had a few weeks to farm and practice this content at this point.
Yeah.
So, really, it's impressive that they're doing this at all.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they've only been able to kill these bosses like 8 or 9 times now at this point.
Something like that.
But here's Malkarok at 1%. Midwinter catching up, takes down Malkarok.
And as Malkarok falls, Midwinter immediately is ported over to Siegecrafter Blackfuse to jump in and begin that encounter. Now, Midwinter has a very different approach to Blackfuse. These 2 guilds were actually 2 of the first guilds to release videos for the encounter that in many ways define the strategies that other raids and other guilds emulated. And it's interesting how they took such diametrically opposed approaches to the fight. They tank Blackfuse on opposite sides of the platform. They stack the Shredder ads that spawn on Blackfuse, is what Midwinter does, which, again, Method did not do that. And we'll see how that plays out. Method obviously executed their strategy flawlessly. Now it's up to Midwinter to do the same.
Actually, a little disappointed that our observer here did not choose DPS in that particular case. I think that would have been pretty funny. But we'll see how these guys can do here. It is a little bit longer of a fight, but not terribly long. And Method has once again pulled Garrosh in the meantime. They have him down to 35% in his first phase here. As Ian was saying, he's just an orc right now. So not too scary to have him at 30%. But once he does hit that 10% mark, he does the whole axe into the heart thing again.
Exactly. I think ultimately, on the Garrosh encounter at this point, barring some unexpected slip-ups, it really does come down to that Phase 3 burn. Where Garrosh is just incredibly lethal. You need to execute perfectly for 60 to 90 seconds to get him down to 1% before you can lose to one of his abilities. And we'll see if they can do that this time around, as Midwinter catches up in the meantime. So yeah, on the Midwinter side, you can immediately see, as I mentioned earlier, they're tanking Blackfuse on the opposite side of the room. They're tanking him next to the conveyor belt where all the ads come out, such that the mines that activate jump down right into Blackfuse's model, and they can be AoE'd and cleaved down, as well as stunned and otherwise controlled while also pushing damage on the boss. This is ultimately probably a more efficient way to do the fight overall.
Yeah, it definitely, Midwinter making a couple of choices, like the one we were pointing out on Mount Rock as well. They're making a couple of choices here. They've just been going for the faster kills this whole way through, which makes sense in a race. They gave them a lot of trouble on Dark Shaman. They went for a much riskier approach there. The couple of approaches afterwards, they are a little bit risky as well. I don't feel as risky as the Dark Shaman strategy, but like this is solid strategic thinking here. These guys are very, very intelligent about how they're approaching this.
And especially one of the things, for guilds like these, the vast majority of guilds that do this fight, even guilds that are ranked, let's say, 10th, 20th in the world, there are going to be videos that are out there that are going to be strategy guides available. But for these guilds going in, they were learning this fight completely blind and experimented with a wide variety of different approaches. Which turrets do you kill, which do you leave alive, where do you position the boss? And adjusted and adapted as they went, and this is what they settled on. And it's interesting how the outcome of that sort of organic process led to two totally different outcomes that both work equally well for these guilds.
Yeah, there's only so much learning you can do on a heroic boss fight in the public test realm. They stay open for very, very limited periods of time. So, yeah, they had to learn this stuff almost entirely from scratch. And it's honestly, it's really interesting to me up here, just watching these guys, seeing how different the strategies are.
Now, in the meantime, Method is plugging away on Garrosh. They're just getting into phase 2. They finished that first heart room, and his Whirling Corruption is not yet empowered, so they can just go through, deal with the standard Mind Control, standard Whirling Corruption, and whittle down the boss's health.
Fires have now more or less cleared up over here for Midwinter. Does take a big spike of damage, but no big problem whatsoever. Going to heal right back up off of that. Looking in very, very good shape here on Black Fuse.
So yeah, normally guilds tend to separate the Shredder ad that Black Fuse spawns from the boss himself, because when they're close, Black Fuse will heal the ad. However, Midwinter actually gets stacks of a tank buff very high on their tanks, which allows them to actually stack the ad on top of Black Fuse and just out-damage the heal. Because the tank does a bunch of extra damage to the ad while he's holding him, and they can, by doing that, simplify the positioning, improve their overall damage output and efficiency.
Looking over at Garrosh once again, Method working their way through Garrosh here. We'll have another heart phase here very, very soon, but at the same time, there's still a lot of this fight left, and we're going to start running short on time here soon.
Absolutely. If we do run out of time, which unfortunately may happen, we'll just come down to a tiebreaker. Whichever guild got farthest, whichever guild got Garrosh to the lowest percent will be declared the winner. So it's up to Method really to pull this attempt out and to actually get the kill. Otherwise we go to a tiebreaker.
Yep, and it does also mean that there is a very real chance for Midwinter to catch back up here. If they can get through the rest of Black Fuse here, he's at 42%. They can get through the rest of that, finish him off, get into Garrosh, get to that phase, was that phase 3?
Exactly.
That Method got to, and get him lower. They could actually still be able to pull off victory here.
Black Fuse still looking pretty good for Midwinter. It looks like they have one death, but overall the positioning is still solid. They're just going through their execution.
Yeah. The room is full of fire, and, well, they don't really care. They're
fire and lasers and saw blades and rockets, and that's pretty much what Black Fuse does.
I mean, he is a goblin, so you just kind of got to expect. Things are going to start breaking. There's going to be laser beams and razor blades and all sorts of stuff everywhere, so that's what Black Fuse does. That's what he's all about. Checking in with Method. They're getting pulled back into the heart phase yet again.
This is the Terrace of Endless Spring heart room, the second one again, as they quickly rush through, avoid all the missiles, grab the ads, and AoE them down. Now, again, coming out of this heart room, this is where Garrosh gets much more dangerous, and this is where really it's down to serious business. On Midwinter's side, yeah, they're still plugging along. Looks like they got Black Fuse down to 29%. Raid is still in good shape, only one death.
And Method is now DPSing on, or doing some damage there to Garrosh. He's going into his little stompy cleave phase of the heart room, which again, they have not had any issues with this particular phase. I don't expect them to start right now, so should be able to get him out of there, and then very soon we'll be able to push him into phase 3.
Exactly. You see some of those Devotion Auras, other raid timers going out to help mitigate the damage. Spirit Link Totem down for Method. You pretty much use almost all of the cooldowns that you have available just to heal through this damage so that you can maximize DPS on the boss.
Yep. There they are out. Garrosh at 36%, and he will be be transitioning soon. Meanwhile, Midwinter has Black Fuse at 24%. Going to be getting into that execute range. Will be able to start picking up some DPS on him. Tank getting very low there for a second, but is able to heal him back up. They do have that one death still, just that single one death, so they should be able to finish this off. But it does start to get really dicey at this point in the encounter.
Alright, so now on Method side, they're deep into phase 2 in Garrosh. That first empowered Whirling Corruption is going out. You can see all the ranged members of the raid are pretty far spread out, so that the ads spawn apart from each other and can be picked up and killed again apart from each other.
Yeah, those ads have to be separated or they will get very, very scary very quickly when they start dying. And you cannot let them accidentally wander in on the tank and all die together because, well, then you'll all die together. That's just sort of how that turns out. Garrosh at 18%. We'll be getting into that transition phase here very, very soon. Siegecrafter at 15% now at this point and falling very, very quickly here. They do have to kill off a few more. They're going to kill off that one missile turret, and it looks like they may actually wait on the other two. So should not be. Yeah, they're just going to go ahead and let those go. Still just one death. Black Fuse at 11%, and the Crawler Mines are going to start coming out. They're going to have to kill those off. One more death there for them, but I'm feeling confident in this kill here from Midwinter. I believe that they're going to have no major issues. As long as they can avoid this bunch of damage right here, they should still be fine. There is one more death in that, but 9% on Black Fuse. They did actually have another battle res available that they went ahead and used, so should be good.
Back over on Method side, now they're again into phase 3 on Garrosh. This is where they wiped last time. This is where they ran into those difficulties. In phase 3, Garrosh, obviously visibly transformed. His power bar goes all the way up to 100. Okay, quick. And yeah, they just need to power through this. It's basically they need to get him down to 1% health so he can transition into phase 4 before they run out of time. Now in phase 3, he continues to do empowered Whirling Corruption, spawning ads there.
Big hit on the entire raid.
Deals with some serious raid damage on Black Fuse, but looks to be holding it together.
Yep, 5% now.
5%.
They're almost there. Just a little bit longer. Got to hold it together. Another one does fall, but 4% on Black Fuse. 3%. I'm feeling good. It's looking good. 2% on Black Fuse. Just a little bit longer. They just got to hold on. They're doing fine. They're maintaining 1%, and it's looking like Midwinter will down Black Fuse.
All right, so now both guilds are now on Garrosh with 4 bosses killed. Obviously, Method quite a bit ahead, but they're in phase 3. This is where they ran into trouble last time. They already have 2 dead.
In fact, Garrosh at 9% now. He's very soon going to be transitioning into that phase 4, that sort of defeated Stormwind vision that Garrosh has. Oh, but there's a couple of big mind controls going out. You're going to need to take care of those. The
empowered mind control in phase 3, very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, especially when you get this spread out. 4% on Garrosh. They just need to get him a little bit farther to get into phase 4. Yep. They do have 2 dead. 3%. 2%. 1%. And now Garrosh is kind of a jerk. He doesn't transition instantly. He takes some time to go through a little bit of RP, and while this is happening, you can still wipe. Ads that are running around can still kill you, but it looks like they've got this under control. So now we're going to go into Garrosh's 4th phase on Method side, the heroic-only phase. This is his vision of a ruined Stormwind.
We'll show you what it means to be called.
He's kind of smeared a little bit of Shaw all over the place. I really,
as we look around, we can see, this is Garrosh's fantasy of his success. You see folks like Varian Vol'jin impaled on spikes in the harbor of Stormwind. This is what the heroes are fighting to prevent.
I'm gonna have to sort of question Garrosh's idea of exterior design here. It's not really doing it for me. But anyway, now at 56%, we do have 3 deaths for Midwinter, or excuse me, for Method. They can still very much get through this phase, but it's a very, very hectic encounter. Can you tell us a little bit about exactly what goes on in phase 4?
Sure. There are 3 major mechanics here. So the first thing that's going on during this phase, there's a debuff called Malice that's placed on a random player who you may see with a purple circle around them. That player pulses increasing damage to their allies that are near them. If they fail to hit enough allies, it empowers Garrosh in a way that's pretty much going to wipe you. But if you stay near the same people for too long, you just kill them. So as you see, Method has split into 3 groups in a triangle formation, kind of reminiscent of Heroic Ragnaros last time we were up here on this stage. And the person with the debuff moves between those 3 groups to spread the debuff evenly. Now, a bombardment phase begins. If you look up, you see these gunships in the harbor. Again, this is Garrosh Ascendant. This is the might of his horde, raining down fire on the harbor. It also drops one of these iron stars that we saw during the first phase of the encounter that fixates on the nearest player. This needs to be kited around, and it's going to serve a purpose in just a little while. It can be used to interrupt Garrosh when he channels an ability that otherwise cannot be interrupted. So we see them methodically kiting the iron star around, saving it, getting ready for Garrosh to channel his ultimate ability.
Yep. Checking in with Midwinter real briefly. They have gotten him now into phase 2. They're going to start getting the heart phases here relatively soon. They're doing what they can. They're in good shape so far, getting now pulled into their first heart phase, which will be Temple of the Jade Serpent. So Midwinter doing good over here. They're looking good. Method though, Garrosh, phase 4 at 23%.
So really, this fight is going to be over one way or another in about 30 seconds. They just need to burn him down, and the question is, can they kill him before they run out of time?
They do have 4 dead, which is a scary situation to be in, but they're getting him underneath 20% into that execute range. Sko taking a lot of damage, but they did manage to heal him up. It is looking very, very solid here for Method. We may see them actually taking down Garrosh here. Meanwhile, Midwinter having a little bit of trouble in that heart phase, actually. They actually wiped in there, but...
So for Method, Garrosh is at 12%. They are spreading out to avoid spotting another Iron Star, and they have that one Iron Star still being kited off to the side. Garrosh is soon going to use his ultimate ability. The question is, can they survive this bombardment? Can they interrupt it? Can they get the kill?
Oh, so much damage going out there.
So much damage.
But they're still in good shape. They didn't actually
7%.
Oh, excuse me, they lost 1 in that. Now 2 more deaths in that, up for a total of 6
5%.
dead. 5% though. 4%. 3%. Looking good. Getting very close here. 2%.
And now he's summoning these ads. These ads will wipe them if he does not die right now.
1%.
And that's the kill.
Ladies and gentlemen, Method is our victor!
Congratulations to our champions, Method representing the Horde, just coming in under the wire with this epic heroic Garrosh kill.
And of course, very well played to Midwinter as well. They did have a lot of trouble on Dark Shaman earlier, but they still made it to Garrosh in time.
And we can't help but wonder how it would have been, what would have happened if they had just taken a different approach to Dark Shaman.
Exactly, just a slightly more careful approach there on that fight. They spent a lot of time on that, and Method wiped, what was it, 2 or 3? It was 2 times on Garrosh. They might have been able to catch back up, but as it stands, Method is victorious.
So that was pretty much down to the wire. We are out of time for the live raid, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming out. And we'll be having panels resuming shortly, going on to a raids, gameplay, and systems panel about World of Warcraft coming up next. And thank you all to the guilds for joining us here. Thank you for coming out and showing off your skills. Let's get another hand for these amazing players.
Thank you for attending the World of Warcraft.
You're watching BlizzCon 2013, an original DirecTV production since 2008. Level up to DirecTV at directtv.com.
That was the World of Warcraft live raid, and this is BlizzCon 2013 live right here on DirecTV and the virtual ticket. I'm Jeff Keighley back here at our main stage with Kim Fan and Kim. We were going to... David Kim, exactly, from StarCraft. David, it's great to have you with us here. We're going to talk a little bit about StarCraft, esports, lots of excitement. They started the tournament, WCS, right behind us there, and it will culminate later today in the finals. And one cool thing that they just brought by for me here is this StarCraft World Championship Series WCS esports cards. This is a series, and they actually have the players on here, right? I got to open this up and show
These are being handed out on the show floor. Right. For people watching at home, you can also try and win some as well. Yeah. You got all these characters here, and you can actually literally get their cards in the back. You get some of their quotes. Got their Twitter handle here. You can see date of birth. It really is like their own player cards. This is so cool, David. So this is Series 1, and hopefully you guys are gonna be releasing more and more over time.
I think Kim knows better.
I do. We hope to. We hope to release more. And this was just kind of a first test, a first batch. Right. And I think if everybody likes it, we'll try and release more. For anyone watching back at home, if you go to StarCraft Facebook page or visit the WCS portal at StarCraft2.com, WCS, you can enter the contest to win some of these cards. Cool. And the packs look like this. They come with 5 cards. Right. And there is a rare card. David just opened a pack and got the rare card.
Just got it.
Which is the parting card.
He won the last BWC. It's why he has a special foil card. And it's a
blue
rare card.
Yeah, so
oh my God, that's
1 out of 20 packs you can get the parting card.
Do you get a card, Kim?
I have a lot of cards. I got my
Do you have a Kim fan card?
I don't have a Kim fan card.
Not yet.
I'll probably have one when David has a David Kim card.
Okay, these could happen. Well, this is cool. You guys really obviously take esports seriously, and we've got more panels coming your way. But right now we're going to chat with David a little bit about all things StarCraft. So obviously no new expansion here, David, but lots of great esports action behind us, right?
Yeah, David was on the StarCraft 2 panel yesterday, and you were talking about what's coming up in patch 2.1, and he also covered multiplayer. Okay. And so I think it'd be great to kind of give a quick recap on what's coming out in patch 2.1, which is next week, right? Next week?
No, actually the balance patch is coming next week. 2.1 just has a lot of improvements features, such as like you can create your own clan decals to use when you're playing the game, stuff like that. But the balance patch that's coming out next week at the earliest has a bunch of changes. I'm sure everyone who's into StarCraft 2 knows the changes because we've been testing those on the balance test map for a long time now. And yeah.
So based on how the tournament is going, how do you think the balance changes with Widow Mines and Siege Tank is going to affect some of the tournament action?
So right now, we don't currently think there's a huge balance problem, and the current state of the game is looking pretty solid. But the purpose of the patch that's coming out next week is to kind of switch up the gameplay a little bit, so that next year we can have a slightly different and more diverse set of strategies for the pros to utilize. But for now, I don't think any of those changes are actually needed or for players to be able to perform better or anything. And as you can see from the race compositions at the quarterfinals as well as the semifinals, it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, so another question I think people want to know a lot as well is, once the balance patch comes out, how long do you actually wait until the next balance patch? I know we have to let it test out a little bit, but what's the time period that typically takes place?
So normally it takes a very long time because we want to make sure that players have enough time to play with those changes. So as you guys can have seen throughout this year, we've only done very minor and specific changes, and we've waited a long time before doing another patch and so on. But this off-season patch is very different in that sense because the purpose of this one is not to fix problems with the game, but more so to bring diversity to strategies. So we may end up doing another patch quickly before the start of the next season. But once the WCS season starts, I think we're going to go back to our more safe, smallest changes possible, that kind of approach.
Now back to patch 2.1, which that's right, is coming out hopefully by the end of the year. One of the greatest announcements that was released on the StarCraft 2 panel is that the arcade is going to be free. The arcade, that's really big news actually. So all the map makers who have been putting their own maps and custom maps for the arcade now, all the players can access it for free. So that's a big deal. Yeah,
I think that's awesome, especially for Blizzcon, because we not only have StarCraft 2 fans here, but we have fans from all Blizzard universes. So by making the arcade free, and it's not just the arcade that's free, it's also we're unlocking all 3 races playable, so you can play StarCraft 2 for free in the custom game side. So both of those things I think will be very great. So if you guys haven't tried out StarCraft 2 already, I really encourage you to get the starter edition.
Yeah. And the Starter Edition also allows you to play custom games for free too. So that's also a great thing. You can do multiplayer versus AI.
Yeah, for sure. You can play against the AI, you can play PvP against your friends or against random people. Yeah, so it'll be great.
Cool. And so then multiplayer, do you want to talk a little bit about the multiplayer? We talked about balance already. Also covered how the processes work internally at Blizzard.
Yeah.
How was that received, do you think, with giving people more insight into the multiplayer design process?
I haven't had a chance to go up on the forums or anything, but the pros that I talked to that are here, or the ESL crew that's here that I've talked to, the response was pretty good. So I'm really looking forward to what the people are actually, have to say about the presentation from yesterday.
Well, that's cool. Let's go into WCS then. We've been following that. That's been really exciting. Down to 4 players now. We have Bomber versus SOS taking place in the semifinals, and then Jaedong, which was really an amazing match that ended the night last night, versus Maru. So tell me about what you think about those 2 matchups coming in today to the semifinals.
So I actually talked to 2 people about it. First was Stork. He's a Brood War player who now plays StarCraft 2. And his prediction was he thought Jaedong is going to win the whole thing. And internally within our development team, we have a lot of people, a lot of game designers who watch every single major tournament game. And the person that always gets predictions right, he called SOS to be the winner. So I guess because of that, I'm hoping for Jaedong versus SOS finals. But I think at the top of the top, the players of these, the skill of these players is so high and so close that it's really hard to make a call on who's going to win.
Do you have a favorite that you want to win?
So in this specific tournament, every tournament it changes, but I was cheering for Polt, Jaedong, Naniwa. But
Polt's out, Naniwa's out.
Yes, so the only player remaining is Jaedong, so I'm naturally cheering for Jaedong.
Yeah, I was also cheering for Naniwa. I was also cheering for Jaedong. Also wanted Polt to win. So, but I think Jaedong, I think if he faces SOS, I think he will have a very high chance of winning. He did really good against Deer versus Protoss. And so I think if he faces SOS, it's the more concerning thing is if he actually has to face Bomber, then I think he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that because Deer is seen as the best Protoss player right now. I think the first tournament he ever participated in is the WCS Korea Season 3, and he actually won the whole thing. And then the second tournament he participated in was the season finals, and he actually won that too. So coming into this, everyone thought he's the favorite to win, and Jaedong obviously beat him yesterday, and it was an amazing series. So if you guys haven't checked it out,
yeah, you can check it out for free on Twitch. And actually, I think that's why I've lost my voice. It's because I was cheering at that last match. It was amazing. It was great. I think the crowd was so happy to see Jaedong win. And even today, he was coming into the stage. They were just chanting his name.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but Bomber, though, Bomber is another player that I think people are expecting to win as long as he doesn't have to face the Bomber curse. Yeah, he beat Jaedong in the Season 2 semifinals 4-0 very convincingly. So I don't know if Jaedong will be able to get his revenge.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but in that matchup, Bomber versus SOS, I kind of want to favor it to SOS because he's a great player and his strategies are so diverse. It's going to be kind of hard for Bomber to predict what's coming to him.
Great.
Awesome. All right, well, there's lots of cool stuff coming for StarCraft, and of course the WCS finals going on behind us. The grand finals later today, where the winner's going to walk home with $100,000. So very cool to see the esports angle to StarCraft and these cards. Again, Kim, you can go to the Facebook page, right, if you want to find out more about them?
The Facebook page or the StarCraft2.com/WCS, the portal.
All right, well, next time at BlizzCon, there'll be more series. David, thank you so much for your time. Lots of great questions, Kim, talking about lots of stuff there. All right, well, now we're going to go behind the scenes to learn a little bit more about Act 5 of Diablo 3 over at Blizzard. Let's check it out.
Malthael.
The story opens with Malthael, the Angel of Death, stealing the Black Soul Stone, and nobody knows why he wants it or what he's doing with it. In fact, nobody even knew that he was the Angel of Death until he appears at the beginning of our story. And then he sends his armies to Sanctuary to start slaughtering people, and they go to Westmarch, which is the religious, urban, intellectual, and military center of the West, and they just begin massacring people in the streets. Thousands are dead, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows what this is all for. And the hero character is nearby the city of Westmarch and hears about the massacre and heads there immediately to try to save as many people as possible. Malthael was originally the Archangel of Wisdom, and he was the leader of the angels. He led the Anger's Council, he was the main strategist of the Eternal Conflict, he would lead them into battle. And now Malthael's back, and he has undergone a huge change. Now he is the Angel of Death. Malthael's main motivation is to end the Eternal Conflict, the ages-long war between angels and demons. And this seems like the perfect moment. With the primeval trapped in the Black Soulstone, the demons have no leader. They're disorganized, they're on the run. In Malthael's eyes, there's only one large demon faction left that he has to take care of in order to ensure that the conflict ends. Unfortunately for us, that faction is humanity. Because humans are descended from a sort of unholy mix of angel and demon. And so we all have good and evil in us. And Malthael looks at us and he sees demons.
Brother, why?
For us, working on the Angel of Death was a huge challenge because really what we wanted to do is make sure that it had very strong angelic components, because after all, he is an angel, and yet he turned to death. So it's a really interesting design challenge to make sure that in a lot of ways you incorporate elements that are very known to people, skulls, and they're very subtle. You have skull elements on his chest, you have skull elements on his shoulders, and he has these twin sickles. Now, in a lot of ways, what's amazing about the designs for the angels in general is that they already have no faces, so that worked really well for us. But overall, really making sure that it tied into some very basic things we understand about death and what we think about what death looks like in our everyday vernacular.
The Nephilim will stop you. No one can stop death.
Reaper of Souls is really exciting for us to work on because early on we decided we really want to make sure that this had a little bit of a darker undertone and a little bit more of a gothic element to it. So the entire design of Reaper of Souls is really centered around more of the classic elements that we so much love about the Diablo universe. Some of our new environments are Westmarch, Pandemonium, and the Bog, or the Blood Marsh as we call it. The Blood Marsh is an amazing new environment we haven't shared previously yet, so we're really excited about showing that off, which again ties very much into sort of the dread and dark sense of foreboding that we really want to get across with Reaper of Souls. Westmarch was an opportunity for us for the first time to really incorporate a city in Diablo and really to sort of have you walk amongst a city that is very grand and has a lot of feel and history to it. And it's very much tied into, again, sort of Western European roots and Gothic elements. And lastly, Pandemonium is really sort of the nexus between the angelic and the demonic. This is definitely the one place in Diablo, or in the Diablo universe, where things don't necessarily tie into the real world. You have a villain here that we've never had before. We've never fought an angel like Malthael, and we've never had the chance to work and fight death. We all have these images of what we think that would be like, and for us to be able to define what that looks like in the Diablo universe has been an amazing, fun challenge.
All right, that was a look behind the scenes of Blizzard and the making of the new Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls expansion that is playable here on PlayStation 4 and the PC. And one cool thing, Kat, I just saw on Twitter here, United States trending topics, the #1 trend is BlizzCon right now.
That blows my mind.
I know. It's a Saturday. Everyone's watching us, watching the streams, of course.
Keep tweeting, #BlizzCon, and your questions to Jeff Keighley and myself. That's right. We got a lot of great guests coming up later today, including Russell Brower, the composer. He'll be with us in a little bit. Yes. We've also got tons of great guests, and also that World of Warcraft movie panel. It sounds like there's going to be some big news about the Warcraft movie, which is coming from Legendary Pictures and Universal in late 2015. I think it's supposed to come out, but they're supposed to start filming it early next year. So hopefully we'll get some details, maybe on the cast, maybe on the story, some other elements. We'll have to see what they're going to share with us. But I'll tell you what, I will share a little bit with you right now. Oh, Kat's got an exclusive. Tell us, Kat. I will tell you what you don't know. Okay. Is that all of these casting calls that everyone has been using to predict the plot? Yeah. Don't listen.
Oh, wow.
You're getting ready to find the real story today.
Those are red herrings. It's not really true.
There's a lot of red herrings going on. The Dark Below, all of these casting calls. Yeah, no, don't listen to it.
Look at this. Cat is now giving us inside information.
I have all the information on this one, actually.
The laser targets are going to come down on you. So really, we're going to find out. Because I think people are wondering, is it a World of Warcraft movie? Is it a Warcraft movie? It's like, how's it all going to be set up?
Well, the title is Warcraft.
Right.
Just Warcraft.
So, and obviously the universe is so huge, they have to pick a story somewhere to start.
They do.
So I think people want to know where,
And so if it's not World of Warcraft.
Right, it could just be Warcraft.
It's just called Warcraft.
Okay.
Watch the panel is all I'm saying.
Okay, but it sounds like they're finally going to give us some details on this, and I'm sure it's been in development for years and years.
It's been over 5 years at this point.
But they must be pretty happy about where it is.
This isn't the first script they've gone through either. There's been many scripts. So at some point, maybe all these things were true, but now, we're going to start. They're starting to shoot in January, so this is solid. This is final.
All right, so we're going to find out some real details, and I'm sure the internet will be exploding with that. And if you guys want to get all the details as they happen, you remember the virtual tickets. You're going to get to see that entire panel live here at BlizzCon.com and on DirecTV, and that'll be starting, I believe, at 1 p.m. Pacific. So we will 4 p.m. Eastern, right? Is that right, Kat? I think it's
potentially.
Right?
I lose my Eastern and my Pacific.
We got to figure out our times, but it's coming up anyways. So take a look at that. But Kat, we're going to get to something that you did yesterday, which was catch up with the guys at Steel Series.
Yes.
Right?
I stopped by and talked to Mark Jolliffe yesterday and talked about the different peripherals they have in development. I definitely used to be very hands-on with their products, so it's good to catch up with them.
All right, here it is, Kat with Steel Series.
Behind me is a Steel Series booth at BlizzCon. Not only can you play games, but you can also visit a lot of the partners that Blizzard has. And I'm joined by Mark Jolliffe, who works at Steel Series and is going to tell us a little bit about what's going on at your booth behind me.
Yeah, we're really excited this year. We've got the BlizzCon Bank going on at our booth. Everybody who shows up gets a coin, and you can trade those coins in for prizes like the World of Warcraft mouse.
But so speaking of the World of Warcraft mouse, that is the latest iteration in your MMO gaming line. It is wireless. How has the reception for this mouse been?
People are loving it. It's so convenient to play wirelessly, but if your battery starts to run down, you can plug it in and just keep going. It's got 11 buttons, so program it right within the game, and profiles too, Kat.
Yeah, so you can actually go online and download pro players' profiles and see what their key bindings are, right?
I understand there might be a Cat Hunter profile out there, but yes, the pro players are there. You can set your mouse up the way you want it, trade it with your friends, and upload them.
Perfect. Now, World of Warcraft is not the only franchise that you represent. You also represent Diablo, and Team 3 was very involved in the development of this peripheral line, correct?
That's right. We worked with Team 3 on the ID, first of all, so it was really immersive. They're cool-looking products. The headset glows red, but not only that, we've got 10 million clicks on the buttons, because Diablo is a tough game on a mouse. And we'll track those 10 million clicks, and if you can break it, we'll replace it.
If you break it, you replace it. That's a promise you heard right here. So we don't want to just stop with the peripherals. You are famous for your professional gaming mouse pads. It's not just World of Warcraft or Diablo, it's also StarCraft. Where can they find these mouse pads?
Well, you can find them on the Steel Series store, the Blizzard store, and even at Best Buy carries the mouse pads. But not only the StarCraft mouse pads, we've got them for all of the Blizzard franchises, and we got some new ones coming out this year that you're going to like too.
Perfect. So that's all we have for Steel Series here at BlizzCon. Thank you very much for joining us, Mark.
Thank you very much, Kat. Now you're back with us through the magic of television.
The magic of television.
You're back with us, Cat Scratch. All right, so lots happening here at BlizzCon. We're going to, we've got a lot of panels coming up. We've got a lot of Warcraft coming for you guys for the next couple of hours here. But we do have guests from a lot of the other games coming by. As you mentioned, Diablo's going to be with us. We've got a little bit more on Hearthstone. Jason's going to be joining with us, Johnny from the Diablo team. So if you guys have questions, please send them to Kat and I. We are here as vessels for your questions to get them in front of the developers. So at Jeff Keeley, can't even say my name, at Cat Hunter. That's where you guys can go to send us questions that you want to ask the Blizzard developers.
And actually, Jeff, while we were at the break, I had my iPads out and I was watching the Hearthstone tournament going on right now. Yes. So I don't know if you've been catching up with that on some of the other streams, but right now there's an amazing match with Artosis and Trump going on. Okay. They were Artosis was actually up 2-1 last time that I watched. So it's really interesting. He's playing his warrior deck right now. They're both playing very conservatively. It's been pretty exciting this morning.
So it seems like that could become a bit of an esport.
I hope so. You know, like, well, Eric said when he was here yesterday, is that they kept saying that's something that we have to do in phase 2, but they didn't anticipate Hearthstone taking off the way that it has. So I think that we're going to start seeing things like spectator mode and tournament tools maybe being pushed up, you know, once we get everyone into beta and once the game is stable and out there.
All right, well, hopefully we'll hear more about that this afternoon when Jason joins us. We'll be able to answer your questions about Hearthstone. But right now, we're going to take a look at another cool aspect of Blizzard, and this is some of the amazing StarCraft animations that you may have seen out there. Well, we're going to meet the guy behind them, Jason. He's going to tell us, or John, sorry, he's going to tell us about StarCraft animations. Check this out.
My name is Jonathan Burton, creator of Carbon Animations and StarCrafts, which is a parody of StarCraft 2. I would describe it as a simplified version of the actual game, StarCraft. It's a lot more stylized, so I guess a lot of people describe it as cute. So Carbon Animations is me, for the most part, from concept to animating to adding sound to publishing to even just putting on the annotations on YouTube. I feel like I was born to do that kind of stuff. At least that's what I love to do. I have something special for everyone watching right now at Blizzcon, and it's a little special animation I did myself. It's going to be awesome, so I hope everyone enjoys it.
You thinking what I'm thinking, Dustin Browder?
I think I am, David Kim. Grab your weapon!
It's nerfing time!
Take that!
This ain't good. We're going down!
That one over there. Get him! Nice shot!
I think we're done here.
Yep. All done.
That was pretty fun. The StarCrafts, and John has those all on YouTube, so if people want to watch them, they can go and see those animations.
You can.
Looks like a lot of Nerf guns at the Blizzard campus, because that animation was inspired by a trip John took to the campus to meet Dustin Browder, as you saw in David Kim. So when you were Blizzard, a lot of Nerf fights?
There are a lot of Nerf fights, but specifically with John, he became very popular in the community very fast. Right. I mean, for good reason. I mean, his stuff is hysterical, right?
Yeah.
And there is really, when I was still an employee at Blizzard, there's kind of a call to action where they're like, we want to get this guy and we want to officially like make him part of what we're doing. So you saw him do the animation for the Heroes of the Storm stuff.
Yep.
You see a lot more, like he'll do the animations when they have a game launch. He'll do a special trailer. So he's he's just a kid, and I don't mean that demeaningly at all, but he's just all of a sudden
it can happen to anyone.
It can happen to anyone.
Right?
I mean, Amy Morhaime and Chris Sickety and Dustin Browder just really went in and swooped up and said, "We love what you're doing. We want you to be a part of what we're doing," and they've really just embraced him.
Just like it happened for you, Kat. You were here at this desk back in 2008, and they said, "Wow, she's pretty good."
Exactly. And another little piece of information is I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing some StarCraft's hoodies and T-shirts in the Blizzard store soon.
Look, Kat, you're dropping all this inside information. We need to interview you. You're telling us about tips about the Warcraft movie, new things coming to the store. Tell us more, Kat.
Tweet your questions for Kat Hunter to Kat Hunter at Twitter.
Kat Unleashed. She's going to tell you it all now that she's out of Blizzard. All right, Kat. Well, great to have you with us all day, Kat, and we've got lots more coming together. We've got a World of Warcraft panel that is coming up again, which is this is going to be more about questing and what, just going to specifics. Is this going to be for the new expansion, do we think?
It's a new expansion, and the important thing here, I really believe, is an explanation of the raid system. So what they told us yesterday is basically they're taking flex raiding and they're extending it out across everything except for the new heroic mode, which will still be limited to 20 people and will not be flex raiding. But everything else is going to flex between 10 and 30. And so there's been a lot of angst on the forums. You guys have been talking really loud about the LFR versus the flex community, and basically Blizzard came in and said, everything's flex now. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions from the community about, what is going to be, what is this going to do to the basic LFR audience, and what is it going to do to the guilds and the friends and the family who want to take part in flex raiding. So I feel like they've met everyone's concerns. They kind of fixed it all. We'll see what the community thinks, though.
All right, we will. We're going to head over now to Hall D for the World of Warcraft panel on raids, questing, and other elements of the new expansion pack. And then we'll be back here. We've got guests for Hearthstone and Diablo 3, and then that World of Warcraft, or the Warcraft movie panel, I should say, is coming up. It's 1 p.m. Pacific, and you don't want to miss live, uninterrupted coverage here on DirecTV. But right now, it's that World of Warcraft panel over in Hall D. Enjoy it here on the Virtual Ticket.